with the Ravens headed to Cleveland in this AFC North showdown, who do you have coming out on top and why?
So I want to say Cleveland. I really do because I have not seen enough from Baltimore the last 2 weeks to really say that they are a definitive continuous favorite in the AFC. Lamar has struggled with his turnovers. They have failed to execute. The defense just continues to be riddled with injuries. They just lost Marlon Humphrey for the year with a partially torn pec. I think the combination of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt being back is going to be a phenomenal, absolute 1-2 gut wrenching punch for this Baltimore weak defense. Calais Campbell, Patrick Queen, and the rest of those boys are gutting it out and fighting it with all the injuries and the depleted secondary. But I don't necessarily know if that's going to be enough to overcome the powerful running offense that is the Cleveland Browns. They haven't had both backs healthy in about maybe 2 months. Obviously, Nick had COVID. Nick had an injury. Kareem's been out for a while. So the both of them actually haven't taken a snap together in a while. So I'm looking for this game to be interesting. I think it's going to be a very gut wrenching, divisional, tough, gritty matchup just because that's, both teams' MO. I think that Lamar is going to try to bounce back into multiple facets, like maybe running the ball to try to keep the clock away or to keep the ball away from Cleveland. But I also think that John Harbaugh is going to try to dial up some good and easy passes to get him in a rhythm, to get Bateman and, obviously Hollywood Brown, Sammy Watkins, and then Mark Andrews involved as they always do. But I'm just really looking at this and I'm saying this is going to be a tough one. And I think that this is going to be a really close game down to the wire. I think it might even go down to a game-winning field goal. And for Cleveland's sake, it better not be on the shoulders of Justin Tucker because we do know that aside from Adam Vinatieri being the greatest kicker of all time, Justin Tucker's greatest kicker of today's generation. I think that this is going to be a 3-point game. Period. Maybe a 7-point game, depending on how Lamar plays. If Lamar wins, I'm gonna give the edge strictly to Cleveland because I think Nick Chubb is going to run the ball down their throats. Like I really do not see Kevin Stefanski dropping Baker back with all the injuries that he himself has had and taking the ball out of Nick Chubb's hand. Nick is healthy, Kareem's healthy, run the damn football, and keep the ball away from Lamar.
This is a tough one for me just because the first matchup between these two teams was relatively close. It was only a 6-point difference, and both teams offensively couldn't really get anything going. So when it comes to my pick for this game, I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one. And here's why. The Ravens are one of these teams that I don't know how they do it, but they find ways to just either win these games in like the last couple seconds of the game or like the last possession of the game, or they're at least in position to win them. Last week against the Steelers, it didn't work out. They didn't get the 2-point conversion that would have given them the game over Pittsburgh. But to me, I think with Baltimore in this one, I just think that Lamar Jackson's going to have a solid day. I think he's going to have a bounce back game because he did not relatively have his best game against Pittsburgh last week. And I think that they're going to be able to get back in this game against Cleveland because, Kevin, if I remember correctly, wasn't it that Lamar Jackson had one of like his worst performances in his NFL career against the Browns just a couple of weeks ago? We had like
Yeah, I think he
three or
threw
four
three
interceptions.
Yeah.
So I imagine that Lamar Jackson remembers that game quite vividly. And I do believe that he is going to make a good point of that by just absolutely dominating this Cleveland defense. And Cleveland's defense is solid. I'm not going to disregard that. But I just think that Lamar Jackson is going to have a stellar performance just based off of that terrible performance that he had against the Browns a couple of weeks ago. So I'm not saying that the Ravens are just going to run over Cleveland in this game. I still believe it's going to be a relatively close game, but I just think that Lamar Jackson is going to have a better performance than he did against Cleveland last time, and they were able to still get that 6-point victory. I mean, if Lamar Jackson has a better game in this one, or has anything close, I mean, to be quite honest with you, if he has half the interceptions that he has in this game compared to the last time they played the Browns, the Ravens could win this one by 10, 14 points. But it really kind of depends on what Lamar Jackson shows up with against the Browns in this one. I think he's going to have a relatively good day. I think Cleveland is going to be a lot more of a competitive force in this game. I do believe that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to be huge focal points in this game for Cleveland just because I think they want to take some pressure off of Baker, just because he has not had his best year this year. Granted, he's dealing with his own injuries, but he hasn't been playing consistent football the entire year. So I do think it is going to be a relatively close game, though, like you mentioned. I'm going to go with, I think the Baltimore Ravens win this one by 7 points, just because I think Lamar Jackson is going to be in a much better position to succeed than he was the last time that they played the Browns. So if I had to put a score on this one, I think the Ravens win this one by the score of, I'm going to say 27-20. I think it's going to be one of those games where Lamar makes the plays at the end of the game, and I think it's going to be enough to get them by. And I think the defense is also going to be able to get some crucial stops at the end of the fourth quarter as well against Cleveland. So that's where I have this one going. Baltimore let one slip last week against Pittsburgh, and I believe they just kind of get back on track this week against Cleveland.